This is the all-new Garmin Dash Cam Mini 2, not to be confused with the original Garmin Dash Cam Mini that came out about 2 years ago. Now before we go anywhere, I know that a lot of people saw the review that I did of the original Garmin Dash Cam Mini, and you're wondering one important question, and that is, does the Mini 2 have the same overheating problems that the Mini 1 had? Well, I'm happy to say no. Garmin fixed the overheating problem, but more on that later. First, let's talk about the Mini 2. Well, it is still the smallest and most discreet 1080p dash camera on the market today. It's very simple. It does not have a screen because, let's be honest, dash cameras do not need screens. You only need a screen on a dash camera if you're an Uber driver and you want something obnoxious in your car that your passengers will see so that they know that they're being recorded. But if you're just a normal person driving around, there's absolutely no need whatsoever for a screen. Additionally, this camera does not have GPS, which means it does not track your speed. And that's fine with me. I actually prefer that my dash cameras do not track my speed because that's what we call evidence. So, the Garmin Dash Cam Mini 2, it still has an incident button on the back. You press that button if you see something that you want the camera to store to permanent storage on the SD card. It will not get overwritten later. The SD card, it's actual micro SD card. The slot is right there, and right below the SD card slot is your microphone toggle on and off switch. And on the other side is the power connection. Now the great thing is that while this still has an almost identical form factor to the original Mini, it's a little bit squarer, it still works with all the same stuff, right? So you can use the same Garmin parking cable as before. It still uses the same exact ball socket joint to connect it to your windshield. So if you had the original Mini 1 and you wanted to just get one of these, it's as simple as just unpacking it, popping it back onto your windshield and plugging it right in. You don't have to make any changes whatsoever. This camera currently goes for about $130, which in my opinion is a little bit steep these days for a 1080p dash camera. But if this goes anything like the original Mini did, the price is probably going to drop rather quickly because that's what happened a couple of years ago. So, you know, if 130 bucks seems steep to you, you may just want to wait a little while, and I'm sure you'll be able to get it for less. But even so, this still is a fantastic camera for $130. Now, I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't mention one critical accessory that you definitely should get for your dash camera. It doesn't matter if it's this dash camera or any dash camera, and that is a polarizing filter. Now, this is the Garmin Polarizing Filter, and it will fit any of Garmin's dash cameras, not just the Mini and Mini 2, but any of their dash cameras. It's about 20 bucks online. Just Google Garmin Polarizing Filter and it'll come up. And the reason that you want one of these things, well, I mean, just take a look at this sample footage here. On the left, you can see the camera with the polarizing filter, and on the right, without the polarizing filter. There's really a pretty huge difference in quality. I mean, there's a big difference in the amount of glare that the polarizing filter is able to remove. Now, when a cloud blocks the sun and everything gets a little bit more diffuse, then, you know, it neutralizes out a little bit. You can tell that it gets harder to see much of an improvement using the polarizing filter. But on a sunny day, this thing makes a huge, huge difference. So I definitely recommend that you pick one of these things up. And the only thing to note, it's very important, is that at the top of the filter is a notch. Right? That notch indicates the orientation you have to put this onto the camera. Make sure the notch is either pointing straight up or straight down, and then you just slide it on. Now, if this notch is at any other angle, the polarizing effect will not work, so make sure that you have it oriented properly. Now, the Garmin comes with a couple of different power cables. It also comes with a 12 volt to USB adapter that you can use, but odds are you're going to want to have your dash camera permanently installed and get it done by a professional who knows what they're doing. And you're going to need the Garmin parking cable to do that. That's also something extra that you're going to need to buy. But what the parking cable does is it will allow the camera to go into parking mode when you park your car. If you don't have that, then you either have to manually unplug the camera and plug it back in every time you get in and out of your car, or the camera's simply always going to be on, which is not good for the battery, or it's never going to turn on, right? So get the Garmin parking cable and have it professionally installed. So once it's installed, the camera connects with a very simple system. It uses this tiny little plastic ball and socket joint. Right, now I already have one stuck up there. This is actually the one from my original Mini. I haven't had to replace it for this. And all you do is you take your camera, you just snap it on. And once it's on there, you can take the power cable, and voila, you're done. That's pretty much all there is to it. The camera does fit nice and snug on there. You can adjust it pretty easily. However, I think if you ever got into a serious accident, odds are that camera is going to just flip right over on that ball joint. But still, for general use, it never moves on me. It's always stable. All right, at this point, I'm sure you all just want to see sample footage from the camera, so let's go ahead and take a look at that now. Overall, the video quality from the Mini 2 is actually quite good, especially for 1080p. I mean, the exposure is good, the color is good, although probably not horribly accurate, but most importantly, the clarity is good. All of the footage that you're seeing now is how it came off the camera, with no tweaking on my end. However, I do need to point out that what you're seeing is also 4th generation video, so it's not quite as good as the original video that came off of the SD card. So the 1st generation would have been what is recorded on the SD card. The 2nd generation happens when I spat the completed review out of Final Cut Pro. Then I had to compress the movie to upload it to YouTube. That was the 3rd generation, and then YouTube recompresses it. So that's 4th generation. So what you're seeing now still looks good, but it looked a whole lot better when it first came off of the camera. Now, like the original Mini, the Mini 2 records at 15 megabits per second, which is much more than the pathetic 10 megabits per second that most 1080p dash cameras record at. And what this means is that there's far less video compression artifacting than you might find on many other 1080p dash cameras. I always like to use these power lines here as a test in all my dash cam reviews, because when a dash camera has poor video quality, poor video compression, these power lines, they tend to become mangled, they disappear, they just pixelate out. But on the Mini 2 here, they're intact, they're visible, and they're clear. So that's an indicator that this has good quality 1080p video. Obviously, the video is not as clear as it would be on a 2K or a 4K dash camera, so it is a little bit disappointing that the Mini 2 is still only 1080p. I've got to admit that I was really expecting the next generation Mini to be at least 2K. The Mini 2 lets you record audio from an onboard mic, and the quality is good. It's easy to hear conversations, even in a loud car like this. This is a test of the microphone, testing 1, 2, 3. The audio comes in pretty clear on here. When 2 people are talking, I can hear the conversation quite clearly. Testing 1, 2, 3. This is a test. The nighttime footage on the Mini 2 is also quite good. This is dusk footage here. And in person, it was actually a lot darker out than it looks like. But the Garmin overexposes a bit so that you can see things more clearly under these lighting conditions. Now, normally overexposing would not be a good thing, but at dusk, it is a good thing because, well, it just makes everything easier to see. And once it gets really dark, the footage is still very good, although it does become much harder to read signs and license plates and things like that because the shutter speed is slower and there's more noise due to the higher gain due to the low light. Now, I do have one little annoying issue with the Garmin Mini 2, and that is this. Look what happens when I start it up. Did you hear that? It made this annoying beep sound. Now, I know this doesn't seem like a big deal, but the problem is that, well, not only does it do that every time I start the car, and it does it every time I hit a pothole, but it also records that onto the video, and when it records it onto the video, it's really, really loud. So, I mean, you see what I mean? It's just, I don't know why it does that. This is supposed to be a small, discreet dash camera, but there's nothing discreet about that beep. Additionally, there is no way to disable it. So if you go into the settings for the camera, there's no way to turn that beep off. I'm really, really hoping Garmin adds an option to turn it off because I really don't like this dash camera constantly making noises. Now, since the Garmin Mini 2 does not have a screen, it means that you have to use the Garmin Drive app on your phone in order to do all the settings, to see what the camera sees, to see your footage, everything. You got to do everything from the app. And I'm going to admit, while I like the Garmin Drive app, this is one of the better dashcam apps that I've used, it has not been completely smooth sailing with the Mini 2. So it connects with Wi-Fi, to the camera. And I have not had the best of luck with this, which is strange because with my original Mini, I almost never had any problems getting it to connect with Wi-Fi. But let's see what happens here. So if I go to live view, it's going to say connecting to feed, and then I wait for it, and it says, do I want to join the Wi-Fi network? I say yes. Let's see if it connects. It does take a while no matter what happens, and I think it might work this time because it hasn't failed yet. But sometimes what happens is, and actually most of the time when I've tried connecting, it'll just say unable to join Wi-Fi network. This happens probably 90% of the time that I've tried to connect. Now sometimes it'll give me that warning, but it connects anyways. Other times I have to back out and then try it again. So it usually takes me 2 or 3 attempts to get my live view up, which is really weird. Like I said, this never happened with the original Mini, but it's happening to me 80 to 90% of the time with the Mini 2 for whatever reason. So anyway, once you're in this mode, you can see what the camera sees, and that's when you go in and you can adjust the camera, get it aimed the way you want it, and you're good to go. Now, you also have, if I select this, you have your settings, which I'm not going to bore you with all the details of every single setting here. Most of this stuff is just very self-explanatory stuff. You can name your camera, you can set up the Wi-Fi connections, you can select whether you want the 1080p or 720p, why you would want less resolution, I have no idea. Most of the stuff, you just leave it at the defaults when you get it, and that's really the place you want it to be. But there is one option, and it's called Parking Guard now. That's kind of their new name for parking mode. So here's another thing that is different about the Mini 2 versus the original Mini. Now, the original Mini had 2 different types of parking mode. It had motion detection and it had collision detection. Motion detection meant that the camera was always on while your car was parked, and it would just watch for anything moving. And if it saw something move, it would record that footage to permanent storage. Then it also had impact detection mode, which was basically just the mode where it uses the collision sensor, and your car is parked, and if it sensed that anything hit your car, then it records the footage and saves that to permanent storage. Well, they got rid of motion detection on the Mini 2, so now it only has impact detection. Now I should point out some history here, okay? Let's talk about why there's an overheating problem. So the original Dash Cam Mini, it works flawlessly as long as you don't have parking mode on. It will never ever overheat while you're driving around. Oddly enough, it'll never ever overheat while you're parked and in parking mode. The problem was when you came out of parking mode. There was something weird with the camera, something weird with either the software or the hardware, where when it switched from parking mode back to regular driving mode, quite often, meaning maybe 80% of the time, it would very rapidly cause the camera to heat up. I mean, so hot that you couldn't touch it kind of heat. And this would happen within maybe 20 seconds sometime of starting the car back up, and would cause the camera to malfunction. It would cause it to lock up, and there would be no way to even turn it off. It would not turn off when the car turned off. You had to physically unplug it. It's a major hassle, and because of that, I just simply never used parking mode. This has been off for a long, long time now because it just wouldn't work. But the great thing is that, the Mini 2, I've tested it for 2 weeks now in the summer heat. It's July here in Texas, and it has not overheated even once on me. Now, in the original review I did of the Mini 1, a lot of people commented, they say, well, maybe it's your memory card, or maybe it's some voltage problem with the Garmin parking cable. Well, I tried multiple SD cards, and I also had the voltage tested on the Garmin parking cable. They all checked out. To put the final nail in that coffin, I am using the exact same memory card that used to be in this. It is now in the Mini 2. I'm using the exact same parking cable. This is the same car. I'm even using the exact same polarizing filter on this. So everything is exactly the same. It's just the Mini 2 instead of the Mini 1, and it is now working perfectly. So another new feature on the Mini 2 is voice commands. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I have not even tested this feature because it's a feature I will never use, and I honestly do not care about it. But here's the thing. In the settings, voice commands, you can turn it on, you can turn it off, you can set what language you want it to recognize, and you can set what you want the wake word to be. So you can set it to say OK dash cam, or you can say OK Garmin. It beeps when you do that, so I know it heard me. And then you tell it what you want it to do. But honestly, I'm never going to use this because I'll just press the button on the camera if I see something. That's going to be my instinct. I'm just not going to have the frame of mind to remember the wake command and what the actual commands are. Additionally, this car is very loud, so I seriously doubt if while I'm driving it's going to be able to hear me, especially considering that most of the time I drive this car, I've got the top down, and there is no way she's going to hear me with all that wind noise. So anyway, you know, it's a cool feature. I'm glad it's there, but it's nothing I have ever needed or will ever use. All right, the next new feature on the Mini 2 is something called the Vault. And what the Vault is it is Garmin's cloud service. It's where your camera can upload videos so that you can access them remotely. Now, last year I reviewed this. This was the Nexar Beam dash camera, and I pretty much ripped this thing a new a-hole. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that their cloud service was implemented horribly. I mean, it was really just not done well in any way. I'm happy to say that Garmin did not try to copy what Nexar did. I think that they did it right. So what the Nexar did is it would upload all your video. I mean, constantly. As you're driving, it is constantly sending video to your phone, and then your phone is uploading it to the cloud all the time. That meant it's draining your phone battery, it's using up your data plan, and it's just unnecessary because 99.9% of all your footage is nothing you're ever going to ever want to see. But yet it was uploading everything. And additionally, it was uploading a low quality 720p low bitrate copy of the video. So even when it uploaded something important, you couldn't see anything because it was just terrible quality. Not so with Garmin. Garmin did it right. It only uploads when you press the incident button on here or when an impact is detected. Those are the important pieces of video, and those are only what the Mini will upload to the Vault. Additionally, it uploads the original 1080p 15 megabits per second copy of the video, so you're getting the full quality deal when it goes up there. Now, the way it works is over Wi-Fi, right? So if your car or your phone has a Wi-Fi hotspot and you've got the camera set up to connect to that, then as soon as one of these incidences happens, it will send that to the cloud right away. Now, the problem is if you're like me and you don't have a Wi-Fi hotspot in your car or on your phone, then nothing happens. But when you get home and you get into your garage and your camera can reconnect to your home Wi-Fi, then it will upload those videos to the Vault. So that means that it has limited use unless you have a mobile Wi-Fi hotspot. But here's the second problem. When an incident does occur and it uploads one of these videos, it does not send you a push notification to let you know that anything happened. So suppose that your kid borrows the car and you do have a car with a Wi-Fi hotspot, they get into a wreck, it uploads video of that to the Vault. Well, unfortunately, you're not going to know. It never notifies you, which I think is kind of strange. It seems like an obvious feature that they should have, but it's not there. So I think it's a nice feature to have. I think it's implemented well, but it's not full-featured enough to really be of any real use. I mean, it may come in useful now and then, but for me, it's a feature I could live without. But suppose you do have some video in there. You just go into the Vault. So in my case, I just have one little recording here because I thwacked the camera to make it record this. It only keeps these recordings for 24 hours. If you want a longer amount of time, you have to pay Garmin for that. And frankly, I don't think that it's worth it. Why am I going to pay Garmin a monthly fee for something that I'll probably never use? And if I do, I'll be able to get to that footage within 24 hours. So that's my take on that. But anyway, the footage is here. It'll download it. You can watch it. You can save it to your phone. You can share the footage and so on. So, it's nicely done. I'd give their implementation a B+, and they only get they don't get an A because it doesn't do push notifications. I think that's really kind of the one missing feature here. But I gave the Nexar Beam an F for their horrible implementation of a cloud service. So other than using the Vault, how do you actually get to the videos that are stored on the SD card on the camera? Well, it's pretty easy. You just go into the app, you select your camera, you see videos and photos, you select that, And now here's where all of the videos are stored, and it's broken down by category. So we have saved and temporary. Saved are the video clips that were saved because of something happening, right? So either you pressed the incident button on the camera itself, or you hit a pothole or you hit another car, something triggered an impact detection, and those get saved into permanent storage. These files will not get overwritten until you reformat the card. Now, temporary footage, those are just the regular driving around files, right? Those are just going to fill up your memory card, and when it gets full, it's going to go ahead and start deleting the oldest ones first. So it just kind of cycles through them. These are just regular driving videos. Now, when it writes these files to the SD card, it writes them in 1 minute blocks. So each file is 1 minute long. And that can be a little bit challenging to find what you're looking for. So if you pop the SD card out, take it to your computer, you have to kind of search through a whole lot of little files to find what you were looking for. But in the app, it's smart enough to know to kind of stitch all of these individual files together for each drive. So every time your camera boots up, it starts a drive. So say, for example, let's find one where we were moving around here. I don't know, this one looks kind of pretty. This was about a 11-minute drive right here. So it'll connect to Wi-Fi. It says join, I'm joining. Let's hope that it does it. We're going to go for 2 out of 2 today. Let's see if it'll work twice in a row. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Hey, it did. All right, we're in business. And so here's the footage from that clip. You can trim it using these little trim things. You can obviously play it using the play button. You can play back with audio or without audio. And you can also export it. Now it says preparing for export. Now here's kind of the one problem with reviewing footage with the app. It takes forever to download these files. It's slower than real time, meaning that if your clip is 5 minutes long, it will take you longer than 5 minutes to download the thing. I don't know why the Wi-Fi connection is so slow, but it is what it is. You can see that this little clip, at the rate it's going, we're going to be here for a really, really, really long time. I'm still at 1%, and this was, a 10-minute clip. So ideally, you'll pop the SD card, take it to your computer, and just do it that way. It's a whole lot faster. But if you're out in the field, and you need to give a copy of the video to the police or to some witnesses, then, this is how you have to do it. It's slow, but it works. So even though the original Mini had those overheating problems, this was still my top pick for dash cameras. Matter of fact, whenever anybody would write me and say, hey, which dash camera do you recommend out of all the ones you've reviewed? I always said the Garmin Dash Cam Mini, just turn off parking mode. But now I can actually recommend the Mini 2, and I don't have to tell people to turn off the parking mode because it works perfectly as far as I can tell. I'll update you guys if anything happens, later, but 2 weeks of testing in the summer, flawless. I'm very, very happy with it. Now, obviously, if you're an Uber driver, like I said before, this probably is not the dash camera for you. You probably want something with a screen that's more obnoxious, that the people in the back seat will know is there, and they will know that they're being recorded. Additionally, if you're a truck driver, you probably do want a 4K dash camera because those tend to have a wider field of view, and they're also a whole lot better at picking up small details from longer distances. But for the average driver like me who is just driving their own car around, absolutely the Garmin Dash Cam Mini is my top pick, and it's my top pick by a wide margin. Is it perfect? No. It should have been 2K. I'm disappointed that it's 1080p. I really do think it should have been 2K. That annoying beep sound that it makes every time that it starts up and every time I hit a pothole, super annoying, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to have a firmware update to allow me to turn that off. I would be surprised if they didn't have that. So other than those two things, it's great. It's discreet. It works. I absolutely love it. I'm super happy with it. It's small enough that I don't even know it's there. It's behind my rearview mirror. I don't even see it unless I duck down to take a look at it. So my top pick. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And as always, thanks for watching.